Valentine's Day. It's a day loaded with expectation, isn't it? A day painted in red and pink, drowning in cheap chocolates and flimsy cards that try to say what people can't. It's supposed to be about love, connection, grand gestures. But pressure does funny things to people. Can make them desperate, can make them obsessive. It can reveal the fine, cracked lines in a relationship you never knew were there. For most people, the worst thing that happens on Valentine's is a bad dinner or a forgotten gift. But for some, the day doesn't just end in disappointment. It ends in a darkness you can't even imagine. I'm going to tell you 3 stories. Stories about when the pressure cracked and something terrible seeped through. I've never been a big Valentine's Day guy. It always felt a bit forced. But a few years ago, I was working a pretty soul-crushing corporate job, and frankly, I was lonely. So, when the first gift appeared on my desk, I was more intrigued than anything. It was the Monday before Valentine's, and sitting on my keyboard was a small, perfect, anonymous box of high-end chocolates. No note, just the box. I looked around the office, but everyone was buried in their work. I figured it was a friendly joke from a coworker. The next day, Tuesday, there was a single long-stemmed red rose lying across my chair. Still no note. Now I was genuinely flattered. My boring, spreadsheet-filled life suddenly had a little mystery. I started looking at my coworkers differently. Was it the quiet girl from accounting? The friendly receptionist? It was a pleasant, harmless distraction. On Wednesday, the gift was a book. A vintage, hardcover copy of my favorite novel, the one I'd mentioned months ago in a casual break-room conversation. My pleasant feelings started to curdle into something else. A faint unease. It was one thing for someone to know my favorite book. It was another for them to remember a throwaway comment and then go to the trouble of finding a specific edition. The anonymity was starting to feel less shy and more calculated. Thursday, the day before Valentine's, is when the unease turned to genuine fear. Sitting on my desk was a small silver picture frame, and inside it was a photo of me. I was walking my dog in the park near my apartment, laughing at something he was doing. I had never seen this photo before. I didn't know anyone had taken it. The angle was from a distance, slightly above, as if from a window. I felt my stomach turn to ice. This wasn't a coworker with a crush. This was someone who knew where I lived. Someone who was watching me when I thought I was alone. I felt like I was being suffocated. Every shadow in the office seemed to hold a pair of eyes. I thought about going to HR or security, but what would I say? Someone is giving me nice gifts and it's freaking me out? I knew how it would sound. I decided to just get through the next day, Valentine's Day, and if something else appeared, I would go to the police. On Friday, Valentine's Day, I almost didn't go into work. But I forced myself. I had to know. My desk was empty. I felt a wave of relief so intense my knees almost buckled. Maybe it was over. Maybe they'd sensed they'd gone too far. I tried to work, but I couldn't focus. I left early, just wanting the day to be over. I got home to my apartment, double-locked the door, and leaned against it, my heart pounding. My dog trotted over, wagging his tail. And that's when I saw it. The final gift. It was on the little table I keep by the door for my keys. It was a single skeleton key. An old, ornate, antique-style key. And under it was a small, folded piece of paper. The first note I'd received all week. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely open it. It had just 4 words written in neat, block letters. Now we match. I stared at it, confused. What did that mean? Then my blood turned to ice. It took me a second to realize what I was looking at. It wasn't just a key. It was a key tattoo. And the skin it was on was mine. This was a picture of my own hip, a small, distinctive birthmark next to the fresh, red, angry-looking tattoo. A tattoo I didn't have when I left the house that morning. The picture had been taken while I was asleep in my own bed. And the key on the table wasn't a gift. It was the key to my apartment. The one they had just used to let themselves in and were now returning. I'd been dating a woman, let's call her Chloe, for about a year. It was serious. I was completely in love with her. For our first Valentine's Day together, I wanted to do something special. I decided I would surprise her. The plan was to use the spare key she'd given me, let myself into her apartment while she was at work, and cook her this incredible romantic dinner. I left my own job early, went grocery shopping, and let myself into her place around 4 p.m. The apartment was quiet and still. I put on some music, unpacked the groceries, and got to work. I was happy, genuinely happy. Humming along to the music, imagining the look on her face when she walked in. I needed a specific spice, and I remembered she kept them in a cabinet above the microwave. I opened it and something fell out and clattered onto the counter. It was a men's silver ring. Definitely not mine. Mine was gold. I stared at it. It was a simple band, well worn. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe it belonged to her father or her brother. I put it in my pocket, a little knot of anxiety tightening in my gut. An hour later, I was letting the sauce simmer and decided to set the table. I went into her bedroom to grab the nice candles she kept on her dresser. And that's when I saw the second thing. Next to her jewelry box was a bottle of cologne. Again, not my brand. I'd never seen it before. It was half used. I picked it up and smelled it. It was a sharp, woody scent. Completely unfamiliar. The knot in my gut pulled tighter. My romantic mood was evaporating, replaced by a creeping dread. This was crazy, right? I was letting my imagination run away with me. But I couldn't shake it. I started looking. I don't know why, I just had this horrible compulsion. I opened her closet. Her clothes were all on one side. On the other side, neatly hung, were a half-dozen men's button-down shirts and 2 pairs of slacks. None of them were mine. They were a different size, a different style. I felt like I was going to be sick. I stumbled back out of the bedroom and leaned against the wall, my head spinning. The sauce was simmering on the stove, the music was still playing softly. My beautiful surprise had turned into a nightmare. This whole time, this whole year, she hadn't just been seeing me. She was living with someone. I didn't know what to do. Should I leave? Should I throw the food away and just disappear? Should I wait here and confront her? Every option felt wrong. I walked into the living room, my legs feeling like lead, and saw a framed photo on the bookshelf I had somehow never noticed before. It was Chloe on a beach laughing. And her arm was around a guy I'd never seen before. He was wearing a silver ring. Just then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Chloe. So excited for tonight. Leaving the office in 5. See you at the restaurant. Love you. My heart stopped. The restaurant? We had reservations for 8 p.m. It was only 6:30. She wasn't coming here. She was meeting me there. Which meant someone else was coming here. Someone who had a key. Someone who lived here. I grabbed my coat, my keys, ready to run. I didn't care about the dinner, about an explanation. I just had to get out before he came home. As my hand touched the doorknob, I heard it. The sound of a key sliding into the lock from the other side. The deadbolt turned with a loud, final click. Sometimes the horror of Valentine's Day isn't about the person you're with. It's about a stranger. This happened to a friend of mine, a guy named Mark. He and his long-term girlfriend had one of those stupid, explosive Valentine's fights. He stormed out and just started driving, no destination in mind, just needing to cool off. He ended up on one of those dark, 2-lane county highways that cut through miles of farmland and dense woods. It was late after midnight, and he hadn't seen another car for half an hour. His anger was starting to fade, replaced by regret and exhaustion. Up ahead he saw blinking lights. A car was pulled over on the gravel shoulder. As he got closer, he saw a woman standing next to it. She was wearing a red dress. A fancy cocktail party kind of dress. Not at all the kind of thing you'd expect to see on the side of a deserted road in the middle of nowhere. Mark wasn't the kind of guy to just drive by. He pulled up behind her car. He rolled down his window. "Everything okay?" he asked. The woman was beautiful, but she looked distraught. Her makeup was slightly smeared, and she was shivering in the cold night air. "My car just died," she said, her voice trembling a little. "My phone's dead. I don't know what to do." He felt a pang of sympathy. "Where are you headed?" he asked. She named the next town over, about 20 miles down the road. "I can give you a ride," he offered. "We can call a tow truck from there." She agreed, a look of profound relief on her face. She grabbed her purse and got into his passenger seat. As he pulled back onto the highway, he tried to make small talk. "Tough Valentines, huh?" he said with a weak smile. She just stared out the window. "You could say that," she replied, her voice flat. The warmth she'd shown on the side of the road was gone. An awkward silence filled the car. Mark started to feel uneasy. Something felt off. "It's nice of you to stop for a stranger, Mark," she said, her voice still a monotone. He flinched. He hadn't told her his name. "How did you know my name?" She turned her head slowly to look at him. In the dim glow of the dashboard lights, her face looked pale, her eyes dark and empty. "You shouldn't have yelled at her," she said. She really tried to make the night special. Mark's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What are you talking about? The reservations were for 9. You were late. And you forgot the flowers," she continued. Her voice was still flat, but now it had an edge to it, a cold, sharp cruelty. "She bought that dress just for you. The red one. She thought you'd like it." Mark felt a wave of pure terror wash over him. He was flooring it now, the speedometer climbing, the empty road stretching out before him. This wasn't possible. There was no way she could know these things. "Who are you?" he stammered, his eyes darting between the road and the terrifying figure beside him. She smiled then, but it was all wrong. It was a wide, thin-lipped smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her eyes were just black pits. "You left her crying, Mark," she whispered, and her voice began to change, becoming distorted and layered, like two voices speaking at once. "You broke her heart. And a broken heart, it lets things in." He risked a glance at her. Her features seemed to be shifting, blurring in the darkness of the car. The red dress she was wearing seemed to darken like fresh, wet blood. He wanted to scream, to pull over, to throw her out of his car, but he was paralyzed with fear. He just kept driving faster and faster into the endless night. He never saw her get out of the car. When he finally dared to look over again, the passenger seat was empty. All that was left was a single wilted rose on the floor mat. Love and obsession. They're two sides of the same coin. A secret admirer who wants more than just your attention. A hidden life that turns a loving home into a trap. A fight that leaves a door open for something from the darkness to slip in. So next Valentine's, when you're caught up in the romance and the pressure, just be careful. Be careful who you give your heart to. And be very, very careful who you break.